As we begin in the Apostles' Creed with those words, I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, we actually begin right where the Bible begins. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Where else could we start? That's why the first book of the Bible is entitled Genesis, the beginnings. Because we have to start in the beginning. We have to explain how the beginning began. We also have to explain who's behind the beginning, who is responsible for everything that follows. That's why the Apostles' Creed gets right to that central, essential biblical affirmation that the God we know, the only God who is the maker of heaven and earth. We understand that in the contemporary world, we're looking at a massive contradiction between two different worldviews. The worldview of the Bible, of Christianity, that begins where Genesis begins, with the fact that everything that is owes its explanation to the self-existent, self-revealing God, who created all that is. The other worldview begins with naturalism or materialism, simply holding to the fact that the natural world, the cosmos, must be self-explanatory. There's no creator as a part of its design or existence. That secular naturalistic worldview says that the explanation for the cosmos has to be in some kind of chance intersection of time and matter and energy. You'll notice something interesting here. Both of those worldviews have a Genesis account. The difference is, what is that account? Unapologetically, we turn to where Scripture begins. God made everything. In the beginning, He created the heavens and the earth. This establishes the beginnings of the Christian faith and the Christian worldview, the totality of the Christian truth claim, in the fact that we understand that everything that exists owes its existence to the being and the will of the self-existent God who created everything. And of course, this also orders creation right down, as the Bible does, to the very pinnacle of God's creative work in creating human beings as the only beings with a consciousness, the only beings made in His image, able consciously to obey or to disobey Him, able consciously to know Him. The foundation of the Christian faith is incoherent without beginning in the beginning, without explaining who began the beginning, without explaining who's behind the beginning, the God who is eternal and always was and always will be. This situates the entire context of everything we know, of everything that is, or everything that was, or everything that ever will be, within the biblical account of creation. And this gets to the indispensable truth that before we can turn to who Christ is and what Christ has done for us, we have to begin where Scripture begins. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, it is an enormous confession of truth to look to the world and say, I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. How exactly do you explain otherwise why anything exists? And how do you explain otherwise why human beings are as we are? And how do you explain otherwise why, if there is any meaning in the universe, it's going to have to be found in the purpose, the design with which the universe was created? And that points to a designer, who's not merely a designer, but a creator. God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth.